Hello, you're listening to People, Pets, and Vets with Dr. Brad Miller and registered veterinary technician Angel Martin.
Hello.
Each week we bring you current events and news in the veterinary industry and share our thoughts and perspective on how they impact us in our animal hospital. We also try to give you an insight and behind-the-scenes glance at our clinic and the people in it. This episode 49 is being brought to you by Georgia Veterinary Associates, a family of animal hospitals caring for your family pet. So, we are broadcasting from snowy Lawrenceville, Georgia. That's not something you get to say often.
It's definitely not something you get to say very often. Maybe once a year.
Yeah, does it snow typically once a year? I'm thinking like every other.
Accumulation, not once a year. Threats of snow, maybe a flurry here or there, some freezing, ice, cold weather, probably once a year at least.
Yeah, I think we had one, 3 years ago? We had like 5-ish days to where you and I had to man the clinic and nobody else could get in here to take care of the pets.
So that was snowmageddon, right? Like when everyone was stuck on the interstate? That's 6 years ago. Can you believe that? Yeah. So I saw, again, I always get all of my information from Facebook, right? Totally reliable. But no, Facebook actually did like a time hop and they sent me images from 6 years ago. It was like 6 years ago in January sometime. So I saw it in January.
So yesterday around 11 o'clock, I was tootling around. I was over around Hamilton Ridge Animal Hospital just making sure the roads were good because they were going to get done around 1. And so I'm on the back roads there, Hamilton Mill Parkway and the Bogan roads. And I kind of had a flashback. Not that I was involved in snowmageddon because I wasn't.
Right.
But there was a line of about 25 vehicles where they put that new light in that goes to Camp Branch Road.
Oh, yeah.
That going up that hill, there are a lot of people really, really struggling.
Yeah.
So anyway, the weather got better after that, as we know, and everybody got home safe and sound. So
yeah.
I did share with my brother Alan in Texas yesterday. We were talking, and I shot him a picture of the snow scene. And he was like, I can't believe it snows in Georgia. That's like me thinking about snowing in South Texas or Central Texas. It just doesn't happen.
So you say South and Central Texas, but like when I would think the layperson thinks Texas, you don't think snow ever. You always think desert snow.
No, definitely.
I know that that's what you
Panhandle,
say
South
because
Plains,
you've been there,
yes,
but
yes.
Most people do not think Texas gets snow.
Well, Texas definitely does, and Georgia does as well.
Texas, where you're from in Texas gets more snow than you would think here in Georgia, correct?
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it did actually snow back home around Lubbock. I guess 3 or 4 days before we got the snow.
So what are like the neighboring states from where you are? So like I think, again, when I think about Texas, I think like Midwest or that kind of thing. So like Arkansas, New Mexico, all of those things. And I don't think they get snow on the ground either. I would only think kind of like up in mountains.
Yes, they do.
Why?
New Mexico?
Yeah.
Okay, New Mexico is to the west. There's a ski resort. In New Mexico,
but are they not on like hills and mountains and stuff?
Not always. No.
That's so crazy to me.
No, Colorado is pretty close by. They get quite a bit of snow.
Yeah, but Colorado, I don't think
just a little bit.
I think is way more north than Texas.
Oklahoma.
Same. Wouldn't really think that they get that much snow.
Arkansas.
Don't think they get that much snow.
Louisiana,
if you were to
I know
ask
you don't
me,
think it gets much snow because I don't think they do get much snow.
If you were to ask me these things, like I would be like, nope, probably never snows there.
Okay. Very similar to Georgia. The North Georgia mountains get a lot more than we do. A lot's a bit of an overstatement, but definitely the 4 seasons are very typical in Texas, but it's very regionalized. West Texas, East Texas, South Texas, Central Texas, Panhandle, South Plains. So, yeah. So
Texas
anyway,
is a big old state, is what you're saying.
So anyway, Alan said, "What are those things sticking out of the snow?" And I thought for a minute, I'm like, "What?" And I thought back to the picture, and I'm like, "Oh, those are trees." There's not very many trees where he lives.
Oh my God.
The only trees that are there are planted. And you know that there's a house and a barn,
so
a house and or a barn.
Is this like out of your backyard where you have like these story tall or like multi-story tall pine trees?
No, I had pulled over, wink, wink, but it was going down the road.
Oh.
Showing the road
so
and on each side.
You break all the laws.
So anyway, that was kind of fun, I guess, this weekend, but it's about all melted off. And so, yeah, we're kind of somewhat back to normal.
Yeah.
I wanted to wish Miss Keenen a happy drive into work today.
Yes.
I shared with you that she, at the end of her appointment the other day, said she really enjoyed our podcast and listened to them on Mondays mornings. And so I told her, I said, you may be the only listener, Miss Keenen, but thank you so much. And I still will stand by that. Thank you. And I hope you have a great day and hope you don't mind me using you on the podcast.
Yeah. She actually shared some photos on our Facebook as well of her dogs kind of playing out in the snow. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Now, she has, I think, several pictures on our website with her border collies.
Well, yeah, they won a photo contest last year.
Yeah. So,
which we'll be doing again this year, so we'll talk about that in later podcasts.
Yeah, when are we going to do that in a few months?
I believe it starts April, but I'll double check with Jen.
Okay.
Just kind of a little teaser there now.
The beautiful and handsome border collies on the website are Miss Keenen. So, word of the week. So last week was rhinorrhea, courtesy of Dr. Hines' pediatrician.
Yeah.
Not her pediatrician, her son's. I almost said his name, but we kind of try not to do that. So you came up with this week's word, which is?
You can say it.
Borborygmus, or Borborygmi. So Borborygmus is singular. Borborygmi
is the plural.
Mm-hmm. And the definition is a rumbling or gurgling noise made by the movement of fluid and gas in the intestine, typically through the intestines.
Yeah.
So, is that a normal condition or abnormal?
I'm going to say normal.
Okay.
Because I think it's like if you were to use it in a sentence or like use it in a medical record, it's like you would say like, I don't know. I guess you would. I don't know. Do you say normal Borborygmi herd or?
Yeah, you'd probably put positive or plus, 1 plus 2 plus, but normal auscultation of the gut. So large animal more important than small animal. Horses especially when they colic, which is when any type of shutdown of the GI tract, horses are super sensitive to that, and that's termed colic, and they definitely should have nice normal sounds, as should cattle as well, other small ruminants. But so dogs and cats, it's not necessarily abnormal if they don't have it, but I said that correctly. But it's also not abnormal if they do or do to a degree.
So like, let's say that a dog ate something and you hear just like natural rumbling, and I say natural, but like you hear rumbling. Is that still considered Borborygmi?
Yeah, that's normal. So you know how on radiographs, it's always going to be normal to see some gas in the stomach and small intestine. That's what's working through, and that's what you're hearing. So that's normal. So it's
just a medical term to describe
gas moving through the GI tract, typically the intestinal tract.
GI sounds, basically.
Yeah, that was one of the words back in my vet school physiology class that Dr. Clark brought up in front of the class, which is why kind of one reason we're doing this. But definitely we talked about Borborygmi.
Okay.
So
very normal if you ever hear it. It's just a medical term to explain the sounds that you're hearing in your dog's or cat's or ruminant's abdomen.
Yes.
Okay. What's a ruminant? Since I said
an animal with 4 stomachs.
Okay.
So not technically
not
4,
a horse. Yeah.
4 quote unquote stomachs. One of those which is a true stomach. So.
Wow. You're going really deep now.
Yeah. We're not going to rumen, reticulum, omasum, and abomasum are the 4 compartments.
Didn't I share with you this not too long ago that I found out a giraffe is a ruminant?
You did, and
which I thought was super weird.
It makes sense though because of what they eat.
Yeah.
So.
And they're hooved, right? So like typically like hooved animals, is that a fair statement?
Hooved.
Yeah.
Yes, except swine, pigs, they are not. They're monogastrics.
Interesting.
And they have hooves.
All right. Well, everyone just got their education lesson for the day, right?
Yeah. Interesting case of the week.
Okay. You have one?
I have one courtesy of Dr. Amber Williams. She had a case which is a relatively young cat. The owners were pretty adamant that this particular male cat did not eat anything foreign, no foreign material, no foreign bodies. They weren't missing anything. He wasn't super curious that way. But he had an obstruction, I believe, trying to think of the day, maybe Wednesday night, kind of at the end of the day, came in, had been vomiting multiple times a day, took some radiographs, looked at them, sent them off to the radiologist. The radiologist read out the films as a definite mechanical obstruction of the small intestine. And so rechecked the animal the next day, still had a very similar pattern. Decided to go ahead and take the cat to surgery. Before we took the patient to surgery, I went ahead and palpated, which just means using your hands to feel the structures in the abdomen in this case. And he was a pretty big cat, but I'm usually pretty good.
He was like a 13-pound cat, right?
Yeah, but I've got relatively large hands. I'm pretty good about being able to palpate an obstruction. They're either going to be painful, or you're going to feel, whatever the object is in there, or maybe a pretty big gas pattern, bigger than like what you would see with normal Borborygmi. And so I felt nothing in this kitty cat, and he was completely soft in his abdominal palpation. He wasn't preventing me from doing that. Didn't seem painful. And so she took the kitty to surgery, and do you know what she found?
I believe I overheard her on the phone with the owner that it was just a rather large, unruly hairball.
Yeah, so it was a hairball. Really, I would call it a hair impaction. To me, a hairball is what a cat will vomit up out of a wad of hair out of their stomach, and usually they're going to throw it up, which is really a good thing. It's bad for the house cleaner, but it's good for the cat because they're getting rid of that hair.
Right.
But whenever they don't do that and it starts passing and making its way through the small intestine, you can run the risk of it impacting or blocking the GI tract there. In this case, I'm holding on my fingers. What is that? 4 inches?
Sure.
About 4 inches long was this hair impaction. It was firm to palpate through the small intestine. And
so you did feel it, but you didn't feel it
in the open abdomen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the open abdomen. And then it was about maybe 1 inch past the cecum, so kind of where your small intestine becomes the large intestine at the cecum or the appendix in a person. So it was definitely lodged trying to make it through that last little small sphincter or orifice in the GI tract, but got hung up there. So about a fourth of it was passed through. The other 3/4 was completely obstructed. And so called the owners. She called the owners, as you said, afterwards, and kind of explained everything, and she recommended basically either hairball preparation given, routinely, or maybe a hairball diet.
Sure.
Which is usually the easiest thing to do, kind of a vegetable oil laden food.
Gonna say, do you know the mechanics of like a hairball diet or a hairball prep? Is it just a coating?
So the hairball prep is just a big dose of petrolatum, and use petrolatum ointment jelly.
Sure.
That's usually flavored, but that's all it is. It's just to lubricate and make the hair pass on through, not really to prevent vomiting. And then Hills has a really great hairball prep diet that's more vegetable types of oils in the food to help do the same thing. And
does your cat typically have loose stools?
Usually not, no.
That's interesting, right? Because like a human being, if you were to add an oil to your diet, you would essentially
I'm sure Hills researched it and figured out, how much is enough,
if the body resorbs it, that kind of thing.
So,
yeah.
But kind of the quote unquote funny aspect of this is the last thing she said, which she and I had talked about this as well, is sometimes you have to just go ahead and shave these cats down, because typically they're going to groom themselves, and as they groom, their really sharp tongues are going to take the hair off the body. That's why their hair always looks so nice and shiny and well done.
Was he a long-haired cat?
He was a domestic long hair.
Okay.
And so I overheard her kind of recommend that to the client. And then she's kind of chuckled, said, "Oh, okay. Well, maybe the diet and the hairball prep might be best. Otherwise, we'll have to, maybe shave all the cats." And so she got off the phone. I'm like, "What was that about?" And she said, "Well, the owner said Charlie doesn't really groom himself that much, but he grooms his housemates incessantly." And I forget if they had 2 or 3 other cats.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Can you imagine that poor owner, like maybe every 3 months, having to take her herd of cats into the groomer to be completely shaved. So
Well, it's either that, right, or a
Or this is-
multi-$1,000 procedure
Yeah,
that
so
could be life-threatening.
Yeah, certainly. So it definitely was an obstruction, taken care of in a timely manner, and he did really, really great. She did a great job on that surgery. He looked awesome. 2 hours after surgery, did great.
Very good. So the interesting part here is that the cat actually truly obstructed with a hairball, which
Correct.
seems super irrelevant that your cat who's long-haired would groom himself, but it's actually a pretty serious medical condition, and we do see it.
Yep, not uncommon.
Often.
Yeah, not uncommon. And again, when they're throwing up that hairball, typically in the corner, it's really a good thing.
Yeah.
You just have to clean it up, but you're not having to spend multiple thousands of dollars taking your pet to surgery. So
Right. Well, that was a cool case. Thanks for sharing that one.
Yeah. Jump into some stories? Or?
Yeah. So last week we talked about the football and the football. Listen to me. The Super Bowl, and we made a prediction on the podcast. Do you remember what we said?
I predicted Kansas City Chiefs to win.
Yeah, we didn't really go numbers. We just said go Chiefs a few
I
times.
I went numbers like 7-10 or so. Or
I don't remember numbers. I just remember us saying go Chiefs a couple times.
Okay. Yeah, we did predict that they were going to win. Yes.
So one of the stories that I found interesting was that like the next day after the Chiefs won, so Derek Naldi basically paid for all of the adoption fees for the dogs available in the Kansas City Pet Project. Only like a week later did Coors Light come out and announce that they were going to one-up Derek Naldi. And I don't really think that it had anything really to do with him. But they basically offered to pay adoption fees for all of the dogs across America.
For how long?
And so interesting because like that's what basically Coors Light pays adoption fees for all dogs in America. This is kind of the title that you read. And then when you actually click into it, it is a marketing campaign. And they are, interestingly enough, marketing to a millennial audience. You must be 21 or older to participate. But basically, it's going after those millennials. So they did a study, and the study basically said that
They being Coors Light.
They being Coors Light or whomever. Yeah, they have the study results. Let me see what they said. So, and this is quotes from someone from Coors Light, but with almost half of millennials planning to stay in on Valentine's Day, they wanted to help empower people to save the day or to savor the day with Coors Light and a dog by their side. And then when I wrote this, I wrote like a little asterisk, like tear. Like, how cute is that? That is just, again, that human-animal bond. Just
it is.
It encompasses all aspects of everything we do in life.
It
here
is,
in
but
America.
don't get all soapy and sad with me right now because I'm pretty sure Coors Light also is advertising two guys in their pajamas cracking open a beer, watching TV in the morning.
Yeah, but again, so they're pretty smart. They're going after different demographics, right? Like the guys without jobs and the young millennial group. But you asked how long is this? This is actually running from 2/4 to 2/21, and basically all you have to do is if you adopt a pet in those times, you just text them a code, which I'm sure you can find online. I didn't type it out, but you text them a code and then they give you up to $100 back on your adoption fee. So it's more like a reimbursement.
Yeah.
But still very cool.
And then they can really start pushing those ads to you when you do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Smart.
Yep. Target marketing right there.
Smart. All right. You talked a little bit about maybe all of the dogs in China last week were going to be euthanized. Where did you follow up with that at all?
Yeah. So that was from like Euro Week, which is like a European.
Is that something you subscribe to?
No, it was just something that I saw again on Facebook, my very probable news source there. But I actually did see it on the Daily Mail as well. And I don't know that it actually was followed through or not, because there's a quote from the World Health Organization that came out and basically said that there is no distinct link between what they call the new coronavirus and domestic dogs and cats. And so
Correct.
I don't know if the Chinese government kind of put a halt on that or not. And so I don't have a result. I will try to find more information out about it, but
Hopefully it was just fake news is what I'm hoping.
I'm hoping, or maybe it was just the Chinese in those countries kind of just overreacting and not knowing enough about the disease just yet.
Several of the articles I read this past week were really talking about the wet markets, they call them, which is where all these animals have been traded. And do you know why they're called wet markets?
urine and feces? I would
No,
assume. I don't know.
lots of fish are traded at these wet markets, and there's just literally, I'm going to say aquarium. I'm sure they're not nice,
Are they
pretty little
live?
aquariums, but yes, they're live. And then there's just water that's splashed all over the place, and there's a lot of contamination because of that.
Oh, wow.
It's a great medium for
Yeah.
for bugs and viruses to
Interesting.
to go from one place to the other. Um,
So we did also post an infographic about that from the World Health Organization about the there not being a link. And so we wanted also to kind of let our listeners and our clients know, like, there's really no concern. I know, like, the news here in Georgia is saying, like, oh, there's people in Johns Creek that possibly could have coronavirus.
Oh,
and
really?
there's this and there's, yeah.
Everybody's worried about it.
It's
Yeah.
everywhere. I don't think that, and knock on wood, I don't really know because I don't keep up that much with the news, but I do not think that there's been a positive case in the United States. I read an article that there was an American who died in Wuhan.
Right,
he was
where
like
it started.
a 60-year-old American who was
It's actually one of the
Ground Zero.
doctors, that was there and thought he couldn't get infected, but apparently he did.
Yeah.
So, should not be a problem really with people here at this point. Definitely should not go from people back to dogs. That kind of reverse zoonotic effect there.
right.
One last story, maybe two last stories.
So I have one more, and it really kind of broke my heart. So I'm glad we talked about all the good uplifting things with the dog adoptions first. But so there was a man in Pennsylvania who is facing charges for selling fraudulent canine cancer curing drugs. And so he had websites out there for these drugs and brand names called Tumexol and the other one Naturazone.
Naturazone, yeah.
And so I'd never heard of these drugs before, and thankfully, but I am certain that, he preyed on
Pet owners looking to help their
who
pets.
are desperate.
Yep.
Absolutely. There was a veterinarian who worked locally where this guy, I guess, was arrested, and she basically said that you should never trust a drug that you're going to find online without approving it through a qualified source, i.e. your veterinarian. And
Right.
I know that sounds so silly, but for the most part, your veterinarian or veterinary staff is always so available, right? We have phones, we have internet, we have email, we have Pet Pro Connect. I mean, just, have you ever heard of this before? Like, what do you think about it?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think veterinary medicine versus human medicine, your vets and your vet hospital staff are always going to be super available to you for those questions. And so definitely, before you start investing thousands of dollars on things you found online for your pet, do ask about it. Right. Sometimes we're not going to know the answer because there's not a lot of studies, and that truly because I think our veterinarians are scientists, essentially, right? Like they depend on the science. They may not have an answer for you on whether you give it or not, but definitely
use us as a
great
resource.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was, the story read that he was convicted of manslaughter previously.
Gosh. Yeah. That was actually a really interesting thing.
Then he was like high up in a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, he was like an exec in a pharmaceutical company. So I actually thought it was interesting, the whole manslaughter thing, because like, you don't really see that in the beginning. You have to read through the stories to figure it out.
Right.
And I was like, oh, did he have was his wife like dying of cancer and he fed her some stuff and then she died?
Who knows?
Well, I do know because I read the story.
Oh, you read the whole story?
Yeah. It's not. So apparently he and her got in an altercation in their house and he stabbed her to death.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh.
Stand up kind of a guy.
Yeah. So he was sentenced to 8 years and got released after 5. And then
You only get 8 years for stabbing your wife?
I guess he had a really good lawyer or attorney, I would assume. But crazy
He'll
stuff.
probably get, he may get a bigger fine for this.
Well, he's 70 years old right now. And apparently, from what I read, I guess the USDEA or USDA, not USDA, but U.S. District Attorney or something like that, is prosecuting the case because it's such a high crime or whatever, that he, if convicted, he could face up to 32 years in jail or a $1.25 million fine.
Yeah, I remember seeing that dollar figure. So
that,
crazy. Okay, well, let's end on a feel-good story. Back to beer.
Lovely.
Motorworks Brewery evidently is printing shelter dogs on their beer can labels, and there was a lady who moved from Florida to Minnesota and wound up losing her dog, and she was able to be reunited with her dog by seeing it on this beer can.
That's pretty cool.
She, I guess, to be fair, she was, my understanding was not drinking the beer, did not purchase the beer.
She saw an advertisement.
But she saw it on social media.
That's very cool. Social media is a crazy thing, right?
Yeah.
But do you remember Jones Soda?
Yes.
So it's probably still out there. But they used to have people submit photos all the time. And like, that's what all of their labels were. They were photos that were submitted by people who drank the product. This company is not unique in the sense that they put shelter animals on their cans. I know of I don't know the name of them, but I have seen it before, that they're like local craft brews, and they will put shelter dogs on there, and essentially the sales of those go then back to whatever shelter they were sponsoring.
Yeah.
So it is pretty cool.
I guess they got the idea from the missing children on the milk cartons, it's pretty serious to lose your pet, no doubt. But
so I don't think, maybe I misunderstood your story here, but I don't think it was to reunite the people.
Well, no, this is a shelter, right? This just happened. Yeah, I'm just linking it together. Yes, I'm saying that's not really the whole purpose. You know, if I lost my dog, I'm not going to go to Coors Light and say, put my dog's face all over your cans. Right. So they're trying to do a good thing.
Hasn't even ever seen this dog.
Just like the Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl champions, by the way.
Yes,
just
they are.
Like that guy did.
Our prediction was correct.
So, before you sign us off, we did want to mention that we are videoing part, if not all, of our podcast now, trying to let people have a little bit better look at what goes on here in Studio B.
Yeah. Well, if we're being honest, we're being told that this is the best way to reach more people, right? Yeah. So I don't think we would video this if it were just up to us, because
Probably not. Probably not.
I don't know. So anyways, if you want to check us out, we do have a YouTube channel for our animal hospitals. It's called Georgia Vet Associates. All of our videos that we take, and we're trying to put more and more out there, but we have like dental care videos. We have how to pill your dog videos.
Doctor brief interview videos.
Cleaning ear videos. Yeah. We'll continue to put more and more services out there in videos. And so certainly there'll be kind of a quote unquote video library so that people can refer back to that. But all of our podcasts will be held there as well. So please subscribe. I looked today, we have a whole 1 subscribe person, and I believe that might be me.
Okay, and that might be true. I don't think that's true, because I had looked at it last week and I did the same thing, and it just showed 1 after I did it.
Oh, really? So maybe it's like only in your network or something?
Maybe,
I don't know. I have no idea how YouTube
So at least
works.
we have 2.
Oh, because you're subscribed as well?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Maybe we'll get those numbers from Jen and see if we have any other subscribed people.
Yeah. Okay.
But definitely, so Georgia Vet Associates on YouTube, find our video podcast there. And make sure to check in next week as we discuss more in the news and in our industry. Follow us on Instagram at People, Pets, and Vets. Follow all the clinics on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check out our blogs on our website at mygavet.com. And also, under our resources tabs, you can get this podcast and all of our past podcasts, or you can get it anywhere you like to get podcasts from. And remember, without people, pets are simply animals.
And don't forget, this Friday is Valentine's Day.
Ooh.
The 14th.
Don't forget your pets when it's Valentine's Day.
Don't forget
Show
your
them
pets.
some love.
Exactly. All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.